A lot of kids, especially teenagers, think in those extremes, either black or white, or, they catastrophize when it comes to thinking. And their self-image, they can see it that way too, that it's more fixed instead of dynamic, like that it can evolve and change with you. And knowing that your self-image is based on what they repeat to themselves. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the NGA podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Grady, and I am here with my incredible co-host,
Dr. Ian Kreider.
And today we're diving into another episode of our mental mastery series with the incredible E.G. Hathaway. So thank you so much, E.G., for being back here and joining us.
Of course. Yeah, always.
Okay, so last time we talked about why mental training matters, the role of the subconscious and the conscious mind, and how that plays into our gymnast's ability to learn, progress, and perform. We also discussed how awareness shifts from conscious effort to automatic performance, and what can happen to our athletes if they skip some of those major steps when they're starting to learn these skills. So I don't remember if we broke this down. Did we talk about if kids are overthinkers in the conscious phase and if they're more in the subconscious phase? Did we break that down last time? Do y'all know?
We talked a little bit about underthinkers most of the time, how they think they're in the subconscious phase and then they're actually not.
No, they're not.
Yeah. Gotcha. You haven't done the conscious phase to reach it there.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit more, and then we're going to jump into what I think is a very important part of the discussion. And this goes for male and female athletes. We always kind of forget to address it when it comes to male athletes, but it's that dynamic self-image that EG was bringing up last time. And
Yeah, I actually went through this with my gymnasts and talked to them about all these big words, and they were receptive. It was good. It was because we have a lot of mid-levels right now that think they're in the subconscious competence phase, and they're not at all. Going back to, hey, you have to be conscious, you have to be thinking about things, you have to walk yourself through it, because if not, it's just not going to go well. Well, how I broke it down for my gymnasts was, I just gave them the example of a cartwheel. I said, hey, when you first started gymnastics, you didn't know that you didn't know how to do a cartwheel. And once we got on to day 2 or whatever of your gymnastics career, your teacher showed you a cartwheel or demonstrated one or had someone else demonstrate one, and then you finally knew that you didn't know how to do a cartwheel. Then you moved on to, all right, well, I can do a cartwheel, but I have to think really, really hard about it. And if I think really, really hard about it, then I can do a cartwheel correctly. And then I looked at him and I said, well, and hopefully now you can do a cartwheel no problem anytime you want to without really having to think about it. Maybe you have to think about that initial, this is the position I need to get in, and then everything else happens automatically. And then I broke it down for bigger skills. So I'm like, hey, as you go throughout your career, this should happen. As you go, these steps should happen as you go through bigger skills as well. Like for me, when I was doing double backs, I did more than double backs. So a double back became one of these things that I could do effortlessly on floor, where as long as I hit the correct shape, then my body just automatically snapped in and did exactly what it needed to do.
Yeah. And what I was going to say before I completely lost my thought was that breaking this down is so important because it can help show them that doing this in the right order prevents balking, can help prevent those mental blocks, like a lot of those things that they struggle with if we put effort into going through that conscious thought stage.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it helps a lot with that. I still have some balkers, even though we do this stuff, but it's easier to talk them through it, it's still a choice, right? So whether they choose to overcome that or not. There is another upcoming mic'd up with one of the girls talking about the same thing, her fear, right? It ends up cool because she tries it, and then I say, hey, was that any different? No. You were scared? Yeah. But you tried that time? Yeah. Well, that's courage. Good job, right? So it works. It just takes application, right? So
yeah, lots of repetition.
Yep.
And I think it's important to remember too that balking and mental blocks and those sorts of things, yes, certainly they can happen from a lack of focus or skipping steps or self-image or any of those things, but it also can come from poor nutrition, and it can come from lack of sleep. And it can come from watching a fail video of someone else. right? Balking or messing up on the skill, or I've had girls that someone else messed up, and then they couldn't do it all of a sudden. I'm like, oh gosh, all right, well, that was them. You are you. Yeah, like we talked about this the other day with one of my gymnasts. She was what was it? She was scared of. I think it was a giant, and I was like, "Oh no, it was a Yurchenko." She has a great Yurchenko, and she's super tall and long, and it's going to be awesome. And so she's doing level 7, and she's doing this Yurchenko over the table, and she's doing it by herself. Now I'm kind of hanging out at the table. I'm like, "Cool, now go towards the pit now, and just go do it by yourself." She's like, "Well, what if I miss on the front side of the table and then just like slide down?" I'm like, "That has never happened ever with you." It's like, "But I saw it one time." I'm like, "Okay."
One of my girls said something similar like 2 days ago. So we talked a lot about subconscious versus conscious and how those things work. And I think that we can start connecting them to what to do about it or how to implement, right? And so let's dive a little further and get to self-image. And then let's go to the next slide, actually. Oh, no, that's the one we were on. Yeah, go one more. So this is an interesting graphic, I know, but the way that this came about, we were talking about this subconscious versus subconscious stuff with one of my girls, and she just had that blank look on her face. You know the one, just not going in. It's going in the ear, but it's just rattling around and it's doing nothing. So her sister's a barrel racer. They have horses. And I said, "You guys have a truck?" "Yeah." "You have a trailer?" "Right." "Okay." "You have horses?" "Yeah." "Where do you put the horses?" "In the trailer." "Good." "Okay, cool. So all your horses are in the trailer?" "Yeah." "Okay. If you don't hook up the truck, do they get to the show, to the rodeo?" "No." "Okay. So nothing's driving." "Yeah." "Okay. So all your skill is in your trailer and your conscious mind is the truck. You gotta steer. Something has to steer. Something has to drive." Right. And then the light bulb went off for her because, of course, I'm talking about horses. So that's how this kind of came about. And I like to use that analogy with most of the girls now because most of them understand that even if they don't have a truck and a trailer in their family, they get it.
Yeah,
Like,
that's good.
if I don't hook it up and I don't put it in drive and I don't steer the wheel, then I don't go anywhere. Right? So I think that's an important piece of the puzzle to understand. There's a time for not thinking. That comes much later, in my opinion. Most kids have to think something. So then that's an important time of year for us right now, all of us too, to be teaching them that, to think one thing, because we're working on mental processes, mental cues right now, much less so than do this pike or move this toe there or do that. Hopefully we're past that. Maybe not on bars for me, but
I'm right there
we're
with you.
past
You're
that.
fine.
You just wait, guys. Bars is a rebuilding year for us. We're going to be great on 3. But anyway.
That's right.
Yeah. But so, yeah, I think it's an important concept for them to know.
Yeah, I like that you guys explain it this way. 1, it's a good visual. But then 2, I like to compare it to how, like, if you don't have that conscious thought when you're learning your skills or you're using that at practice, then those athletes, when they go to competition, they become these overthinkers because they weren't thinking at practice. And then they come and they're like, well, where's my foot landing? How do I know if my hands have been hitting every time? Then we have to start going back and retraining the conscious thought at practice and then starting to do sort of distraction methods at competition so we're not overthinking. So being able to have this analogy and being able to break it down that way is really helpful.
Yeah. All process and execution right now. That's all my girls are doing. I mean, yeah, I want them to do good routines, but it's early. I want them to take the mental processes with them when we go places.
Yeah. It's a great thing to be practicing.
Yeah, exactly what you said is true. And if you're going to overthink during practice. At the meet is when things should be able to go on autopilot, especially towards the end of the year, right? Right now may not be the appropriate time to go on autopilot. You maybe think some, but towards the end of the year, when you're at state meet, you don't want to have to be thinking about how do I set for a back tuck. You just want to be thinking about how do I show off my routine.
Right. Well, and there's some slides that we can talk about that because there's some practice versus performance talk. But I had to do Ron Burgundy, you guys. I had to do it.
Sorry.
We were
mini
talking
leather-bound books.
Yeah. I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. So self-image versus ego, I think, is important to talk about. We talked about slightly cockiness last time and the athletes that we know that are great that are that way. So self-image is just, to me, knowing what you're capable of or what you could be capable of, awareness of your own ability, even if that's high, and it should be high. Ego's different. Right. I think we all know those people. And I do struggle with that personally myself. I always have, working on it, getting better. If you would have known me at 20, you probably wouldn't like me as much as you like me at 50, but we live and we learn. Right. So being able to separate the two and understand the difference give you an example just from myself, not even the athletes. I was with my instructor for something, and I said to him, look, I know I'm naturally fast. That's self-image, not my ego. And he goes, yep, because we read the same books. So, and he's like, nope, that makes sense. So you can have a high self-image of yourself and you can say things like that without it being your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And then arrogance and ignorance usually travel together when your ego gets in the way and messes things up. So I think that's an important distinction to make before we talk about dynamic self-image and having a high self-image. We don't want people to be arrogant. Well, maybe close to arrogant, I suppose, but high dynamic self-image. And we're trying to build that. And it's a sliding scale and it moves up and down constantly.
Yeah. And tying, the subconscious and conscious with our self-image, I think maybe something important to talk about before we jump into dynamic self-image is how an athlete's conscious or subconscious habits either support or sabotage their performances. Because sometimes we miss that connection and how those things go together and how we're in those states.
Yeah, and confident gymnasts perform better. If they have a high self image of themselves, they typically perform better. And in the gym, I love it when the recreational kids or even the younger levels will watch my older gymnasts do basic gymnastics and they'll like cheer and clap and go, oh my goodness, she did a flyaway off the bars. And the girl is thinking, I've been doing this for years. That wasn't even a good one, right? But the kids on the side are going, oh wow, that was amazing. And I pointed out and I go, hey, do you realize how good you are? Like, you couldn't do that when you were their age. Or do you see how far you've progressed in this sport that all of a sudden that thing that they go, that they don't even comprehend how to do that skill. That's something easy that you can do, no problem. And I love it when they're watching and I get to use that example.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a matter of perspective and they need a perspective shift sometimes.
Well, you're constantly learning these skills and you forget at one point, and I always bring this up too, so I love that you did that, but you forget that it took you a long time to learn some of those skills you learned
Yeah.
before. You're like, oh, giants are easy. Giants weren't always easy for you. They were scary at one point to like go over the bar and you were breaking it down into those progressions and trying to figure it out. Being able to see that they made it through that stuff is a big deal. I call it finding your little wins. Let's reflect back on what little wins did you have this entire time? How much did you improve in different areas?
Yeah. Yeah. Like 2 days ago, the little level 1 developmental team was on the floor. Like we were doing warm ups on one side and they were running their class on the other side of the floor with us. And at one point, they were all standing on their little circles on the floor. And the coach for them was trying to talk to them and telling them to like stay still and not be little squirrels. And at one point, half the team was just spinning around in circles. They were just turning around. And, I'm looking over there. I'm laughing. My team is looking over there just giggling and laughing. I'm like, yeah, look, you've made it from there to this because that's exactly what you looked like back then.
You were one of them.
Well, here's where it really starts coming together. I think Muhammad Ali is a great example of this high self-image. Besides being amazing, he knew he was going to be. And the quote is probably one of my top 3 favorite sports quotes of all time, in my opinion. Told myself I was the greatest even before I knew I was. Because the more you say things like that, the more you believe them. So on-demand performance being different than, practice performance. So what are the differences? Like your conscious mind is driving, but through whatever version of learner or thinker you are. So for instance, me, I am probably about 50 visual and feel. So if I give myself verbal cues, not working. But if I give myself a visual, something to look at or what I see or when I see it or how it feels, those things work for me personally. And so I have to sort out that per student, you have to sort that out with them. And then again, subconscious, your trailer with all your skill in it, all your accumulation of mastery of skill, hopefully mastery, depending on what point in the season or year we are. And then your self-image. It's a function of all of those things, your habits, your attitude, the way you think. And the little note at the bottom there, self-image and winning or losing are always related. And it's true. Your dynamic and your performance are inexorably linked together. There's not much you're going to be able to do about that, no matter how much you want to change it. Low self-image people do not perform high unless you struck lightning that day, but who wants to count on that? But if you have a high self-image, you perform a greater percent of the time, in my opinion.
Yeah, when you think through just the competitions you were in and the friends that you had in the sports and the gymnasts that you may have coached before, all those things, whether you worked on these things, you've seen it in action and in play, and you've seen high self-image athletes perform well, and you see low self-image athletes perform poorly, and it's a correlation, right? It's probably a pretty close to a 1-to-1 correlation. And like EG said, every once in a while somebody strikes lightning and they win the meet, and they probably shouldn't have, but they just were on fire that day for whatever reason, and that's awesome. I love it when that happens. But don't count on that. Something I've always said is I would rather be good than be lucky. And I don't want to rely on luck or chance or anything like that in order to have a good day or to have a good meet or any of that. So I want to make sure that I'm doing those things that help me to have high self-image, to help me not be lucky but be good.
Yep. Well, and how nice is it when you're good and you get lucky?
Right. Then, holy moly. That's right. Blow
Yeah.
it out of the water then.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking that maybe we could break down what the components that are a part of creating a dynamic self-image. Ian eating his M&Ms over there. Okay. And the reason why I think it's important to define what a good self-image looks like, because there's so many different definitions that's really hard for us to break it down. And a lot of kids, especially teenagers, think a lot of things are in those extremes, either black or white, or, they catastrophize when it comes to thinking. And they can see self-image that way too, that it's more fixed instead of what you said, the dynamic, like that it can evolve and change with you. And knowing that your self-image is based on what they repeat to themselves. What
Oh
they
my gosh.
picture, what they tell themselves, how they interpret success and failure. We forget that we have, tens of thousands of thoughts a day, and a majority of those thoughts are automatic. And unless athletes are trained to guide those automatic thoughts, they usually skew negative, right? Especially for teenage girls, where they are always constantly judging themselves. And I was definitely one of those
Oh my
kids. So
gosh.
I know I experienced it. So I'm definitely aware of it. And what they're thinking each day is shaping their self-image.
That's like the advertisement here. That was fantastic.
Thanks.
Like literally, especially females. I saw a study that, and I'm weird. I read scientific studies. They actually enjoy them. It's strange, I know. But
I do it all the time.
I saw a study that males and females before puberty have the same amount of negative thoughts about the world and themselves. Pretty close, you know. But after puberty or at puberty, boys kind of stay the same. They don't really have many more, maybe a few more. But girls, I mean, it goes like the scale goes like this. And in talking to my girls and in starting to ask them what they're thinking about and what's going on in their up here between the 4 inches between your ears, just it's insane. They hate everything. They hate their school. They hate their clothes. They hate their hair. They hate their body. They hate their friends. It's self-loathing to the degree that I had no idea. Even girls who seem happy. It's crazy. So yeah, digging into that's really digging up the dirt right there. Right.
Yeah, that's one reason why I have started every practice for like the last maybe month or so now. Every practice we start, I require them to give me one good thing that happened that day, or if it was like Monday, what good thing happened over the weekend or something like that. And all the time I get, oh, nothing good happened today. I'm like, nope. Try again. We are not starting practice until I get one good thing from everybody. And sometimes I let them get away with I'm breathing today. Like, cool. That's great. That's better than not breathing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Or I ate lunch today. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then they get into it and they start doing stuff. And every once in a while I'll change it up and I'll let them say, all right, one good thing or a joke. Or before Thanksgiving I did, what's one thing you're grateful for? I'm just trying to input any amount of positivity into their life that I can, because they're just surrounded with so much negativity.
Sometimes I feel like I'm jumping in their brain like a sci-fi movie and rearranging their thoughts like it's Tetris or something.
Right.
I mean,
wish
you
I
kinda
could.
have-
Yeah. I wish I could just like jump inside their brain and like show them how to do the skill. Man, that would be so much easier, right? If we could just like jump in there and go, this is what it feels like. Okay, cool.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I start is the positive self-talk. I remember when we started that at the peak performance camps, and we had a number of kids just start crying. Like, what's something that went well on this event, or what's something that went well at practice today, and just broke down until they heard everyone else say something. So I think, part of it's like being pointed out, like, hey, it's your turn, like everyone's listening to you kind of thing, but also just that you can just tell that they're in such a negative mindset all the time that they can't even see those tiny wins. And that's such an important thing, is trying to rewire what's going on in that brain. And
Well,
it's
the
not
tiny
constant
wins,
comparison.
absolutely. The tiny wins are huge. The more you teach them to seek those out, the better things get. So, for instance, I have a girl. I love her, but she gets very negative very often, even though she knows all these things and we talk about them, right? And it's okay, and we work through it each time. Feels like every day or every turn sometimes, but it is what it is. And she's not chasing wins. And I told her, like, okay, what were you thinking about? Because she knows I can only think one thing. I should have a focus for the turn or goal. And I was like, well, what are you thinking about? Oh, nothing. Okay, good. Well,
Right.
I just
That's
told
why
her, well,
nothing happened.
yeah, if you think nothing, you get nothing, right? And so she said, okay, let's pick something to think about. Let's just say straighten your legs. And so she takes her turn and she straightened her legs, let's say, but something else went wrong. And then she got off and she's smacking herself in the thigh. And I'm like, wait a second. What did
Did
you
you
tell
straighten your
yourself to
legs?
do? Let's recap. What did you tell yourself to do? Straighten my legs. Did you straighten your legs? Yes. Win. She just stared at me. Yeah, but nope, that's the end of it. Win, right?
Yep.
How many
Now
things
do
can
it.
you
Now
fix
see
at
if you
once?
can do it 2 times in a row.
Yeah, easy.
Yep.
Chase wins.
That's why I don't correct on every turn. Yeah, I used to. I used to way overcorrect, but I don't overcorrect as much anymore. I'll say, all right, hey, that was great. Do it again. Yeah, you made that correction. It's not time to move on to another correction yet. It took you 15 turns to make that correction. Maybe let's make that one for a little while.
Yeah, you haven't
Or if
pounded
it's
it.
their first time going, I don't usually make a correction on their first, unless something was crazy dangerous or they just did something unbelievably wrong. Right? If it was somewhat close to what I wanted, I'm like, cool, you got the nervous one over with. Try it again. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you haven't pounded it into the subconscious yet. But like, I love kids like that. You either get one of two things. I did it. What now? You do it 100 more times? Or they look at you like, and they just stand there. And I say, I don't have to give you a correction every turn. I already gave you one last time. Yeah, but I did it. Okay, cool. Do it again.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about how this impacts our athletes, but it was a great point that, Ian, you just said about how you've changed what you're doing with your athletes, because I think as coaches, we focus on our athletes a majority of the time, and we forget how we take care of ourselves, how we think about ourselves. Our own self-image really impacts our athletes in the gym, and being able to take that step back to do those self-evaluations, to be like, well, how do I talk to myself? What kind of automatic thoughts are running through my head? How am I responding to these things? Am I taking this personally, or is this something I'm dealing with inside, and so I'm reacting to what's going on in the gym versus responding? That think is a huge part of this, and how we create better self-images in our athletes, is trying to work on ourselves and create a better self-image for ourselves and what we see as our definition of a coach, or the coaching style that we want.
That could be a whole nother session one day.
I spoke to my girls last night because we've got our first meet next weekend, a pseudo meet. It's a December meet, so nothing too crazy going on, hopefully. And so we've got our first meet coming up, and I talked to those kind of mid-levels again, because the older ones, they're coming around. They're starting to get it. They kind of know where they're at. But just talk to them about, hey, look, and to preface it, I've got some gymnasts that are on two opposite ends of the spectrum. One that, they don't always act like they care. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, right? Or they're so concerned about what other people are doing or thinking about them. And then we've got the gymnasts that are so I guess, indwelled, or that's probably not a word, but so self-aware that they just get so upset when they mess up, because they're not doing what they know they can live up to, or their full potential, right? So I just talked to them. I'm like, look, we got a meet coming up next week. My requirements for December meets are: does your hair stay up, does your leotard fit, and then can you do some gymnastics as well? Right? I mean, if you can do all your skills, holy moly, you're knocking it out of the park. But I think maybe not every single one, but 90% of my girls this year are doing a new level, and they get the opportunity to hit their best all-time score at their first meet, right? And it doesn't matter what the score is, they're hitting their record, and then we can improve from there. But I told them, hey, look, I'm never going to be mad at you for what you do at a meet, as far as your gymnastics goes, right? If you're poor sports or, whatever, that's different. But I'm never going to be mad at you for what you do at a meet. I'm never going to be frustrated at you. I might be frustrated for you. So if you see me get frustrated, And usually when I get frustrated, it's more of like and a smile on my face, and I'm going, you'll get them next time. But I might get frustrated for you because I know, just like you know, that you're able to do better than that. But I'm never going to get mad at you. This is now your gymnastics. And most of these girls I'm talking to are all new optional level gymnasts. This is your gymnastics. It's the same reason why I don't tell you, why you don't have to ask me to get a drink of water or ask me to go to the bathroom. You just tell me where you're going so I don't think you've been taken. And because this is your gymnastics. It's not your parents' gymnastics. It's not my gymnastics. I can't want it for you. Your parents can't want it for you. You have to want it for you. And if you want to do well, then you're going to want to do well. And I told them, like, and part of the reason why you don't have to ask me to go get a drink of water, if you want to spend 30 minutes at the water fountain, go for it. But everyone else is going to beat you. So instead, if you want to work hard and you want to get better, you're going to get better, but do this gymnastics for you.
I mean, yeah, especially early in the season, right?
Yes.
Like, we do a lot of, like I said, mental cues right now, changing from workout mindset to competition mindset, and what that takes and what that looks like. I think it actually is a good time to go through this slide because the bottom is important. But it's okay to think about results in training because that's the point of training, is to get results, right? But when you are competing, you should be thinking about mental cues or execution independent of results in competition. So if you focus on mental processes, your mental game is consistent. If you focus on outcomes, those are never consistent, they're variable. And so your mood and your self-image will be variable throughout your competition and throughout your day. And that's not what you want from event to event or meet to meet.
Mm-hmm.
So the little bottom there, someone told me this once and it has always stuck in my head, is that, technical proficiency comes from mental consistency, right? Well, that was a good turn. What were you thinking? Well, I was thinking this. Okay. And then they take their next turn and it's not a good turn. I'm like, were you thinking the same thing? She's like, no, I thought something different. That doesn't
Well,
make
let's
any
go back
sense.
to the other thing.
Think the thing that worked, right?
Mhm.
I mean, come on, whatever your cue is, you can change your cues over time, but you shouldn't be changing them turn to turn or event to event. So same stuff. We're doing all the same stuff. I'm just trying to get them in the right mindset.
Yeah, the mental cues I think are really important. I work on those specifically with all my gymnasts all the time. It's breaking down your skills. I have them break it down extensively, and then we narrow it down to what are
Mhm.
the areas that you usually struggle with, and then like how can we simplify this so that in your mind you know what you're talking about with this keyword. And then some of those overthinkers, like I love that it's training mindset versus competition mindset because it depends on which kids I'm working with and we'll change our cues as we're going into competition season. So what you might have been thinking in training, we might have to swap it depending on if you're an overthinker. So I try to take a lot of those internal cues, whether it's blocking or straightening your legs or whatever it is. I try to make them external. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I'm making sense right now. But anyways, the cues are so important. And just depending on your kids, depending on the skill, depending on if they get too comfortable with those cues, then we have to kind of change those and rearrange them and still progress. But the good thing is that they're constantly having purposeful practice is what my thing is that we always have to be doing something, thinking about something in relation to the skill or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I like what you brought up there, though, the difference between training and competition, where it's, think you can train for results, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when the time comes to perform, think about the performance. I think that's so crucial because most people do it the exact opposite way.
Yep.
They train and think about the performance and the mundane, every little bitty thing where it's like, well, actually, let's train, not all the time training for outcome. Like you do have to think about some processes and things, but when you get to the meet, just do the process because a 9.3 might win at one meet and might be 15th place at another meet. And you don't have control over that, but you have control over your performance.
You have control over your mind. That's
Yep.
about it, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to get the performance you get. We're not machines. You can do one thing great one day, come in the gym the next day, and you're like, I don't understand. This feels like an unfolding lawn chair. What's going on? So, it's possible that it's just not there that day. But if your thought process is consistent, I think your hit percentages go up.
For sure. Cool. What's next?
Yeah, let's just keep going. Unless, Rebecca, you had something in particular.
No, I think we.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we're on implementation. That's good.
Yeah.
We can touch on this for a few minutes before we.
Yeah, give us maybe like a sneak peek of implementation and then we can deep dive into it next time.
Yeah, because, implementation, like I said before, all the stuff we talked about up until now was really for everybody's and our own understanding and discussion of the topics. But you're not going to tell us an 8-year-old any of this or a 12-year 5-year-old the same thing. You're going to tell them in a different way or a different example or whatever you use,
More
right? So
age-related content.
yeah, implementation, some of this stuff is my favorite part. So how do we get started? Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So I thought this was a pretty good example of, the faces I get when I ask them some of these questions, right? So the first step to me, guys can do this however, and people can do it however, in whatever order they feel like. But to me, I want to get in their head immediately, first thing, right off the bat. Right? So I'm lucky my athletes have been doing this with me for a while and they trust me and they'll tell me things. But maybe not everybody's that lucky and it's going to take time. Once they learn to trust you, that their thoughts are safe with you and you actually care, then of course it gets easier, right? But favorite question, what are you thinking?
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell you how many times a day in my own gym, camps, clinics, that's the question. That's my go-to. Yep. And the answers, I'll tell y'all and everybody listening, be prepared for the answers because they are all over the map. You think they're going to be about gymnastics, but
they're usually not.
No. Yeah. Right. My boyfriend, something at the lunch table, like whatever. I'm like, this is what you're thinking about right now? Bro, you're upside down in the air. Can we
you
bring
just
it
flipped
here,
twice, could we?
Yeah. No. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting question, right? So, and here's where we get to. It's usually one of these 3 types of things, in my opinion. There's others that are completely unrelated, but there's your overthinkers right there, number 1. What are you thinking? Well, I'm thinking about getting my legs straight and then making sure I lean over and getting my hips on top of the bar. And that, whoa, that's
too many things at once.
One. Pick one.
You're good, but you're not that good. You can't think about that many things.
Nobody can.
Yeah.
You guys know what I do and that it can be dangerous and it's complicated, right? And I'll tell you, if I'm thinking more than one thing, none of it happens. It's bad. And the whole process falls out the bottom and yuck. So, you're overthinkers who are always thinking too many things, and I can pick them out pretty quickly. I have a new girl that just came to us from another gym, abusive gym, unfortunately, and she's been around the block a little bit with some of those places. And so it's an interesting, she's learning to trust me a little bit and we're getting into her head. And first thing I said after a couple weeks was, "Hey, are you an overthinker?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, you caught me, face." So working through those things. Some of them aren't thinking anything. I have another girl who, like I told you earlier, she just isn't thinking at all. Like, I don't know how. That's like, I know guys can do that. I can shut down my brain, but I don't know many girls that can just have nothing going on, especially when you're trying to do something on a beam or off a bar or whatever.
Yeah, well, the other 23 hours and 50 seconds of their day, they were thinking about 1,000 things, but for that turn, they shut it off.
Yeah, or they're the ones who don't have that awareness yet. Because I do run into a lot of athletes who either they don't really want to talk to you about what they're thinking, or they don't have awareness of what is running through their head. And that kind of circles back to all those automatic thoughts that they're having, which they could be thinking really negative things about their performance or what's going to happen, like possible failure, all of these things, but they just don't really know what's happening just because it's always happening to them.
Right. That's a good point.
So we have to break that down a lot.
I think that they need to understand, and we can help them understand that we've been talking about thinking the right things to get the right results. But the truth is, if you're thinking the wrong things, you will continue to get wrong results. Right. And so that's a nasty spiral. You could get really far down that rabbit hole if you let it continue. Right. So, and some girls do let it continue. And then you combine it with lack of sleep and poor eating, and all of a sudden their anxiety goes through the roof and depression and all the things. We're trying to avoid all those things. And to me, this isn't really all about gymnastics. It helps me teach gymnastics, but I'm really teaching them how to just handle their own emotions, because when they're done with gymnastics, they still have to do some adulting, right?
Still have to be a functioning human.
Yeah, hopefully, right? Yeah. And then the last thing, they know how to think one thing, but they're thinking the wrong thing. Or maybe they don't even know how, but they know that they can only think one thing, but it may be the wrong thing. So a good example of that to me, and there's a lot of examples of that, but a good example of that to me, even with the best of intentions, is like, what were you thinking? Well, I was thinking, don't bend my knees. Have you ever told a 3-year-old, don't touch the stove? What's the first thing they want to do, right? You literally put that thought in your head, right? You put the bent knee thought in your head, They're like, what? I'm like, don't think
it's
about
like telling them, don't think about a pink elephant.
Right.
That would be
what
so
did you
cool.
just see? Pink elephant, right? Okay. So what should you say? Keep my legs straight. There you go. right?
And then how do you keep your legs straight?
Yeah, because especially for those athletes that have to feel something, then you have to break it down one more step further and go, all right, sit down on a pike, squeeze your knees straight. Do you feel that muscle squeezing? All right, that's what I need you to feel when you do the skill.
Yeah, Mike said something last time that you have to put them in the position so they can feel it. And at first I was hesitant because, I mean, I know Mike's a great coach and he was my coach and I listen to everything he says eventually, even though I don't always want to. But, I'm like, but some of them aren't feel based, right? Some of them are verbal and some of them are visual. And I was like, well, wait a second. If I don't put them in that position, they're not getting the visual of it. They're not
right.
able to talk themselves through it. I started spotting a little more on bars, even more than I already do, so that's fun.
How you feeling? You holding up okay?
Shoulder, man. Yeah. But
He needs some PT help from you,
Yeah, I
Ian?
got you. I
yeah,
got you.
for real. That's just the old ring injuries. You know how that went. But I started putting them in the position and they started like coming up with their own cues. Like even if they're not a feel, even if they're a visual, they're like, well, I saw the bar here or I saw this there. And we can do a whole nother podcast on vision exercises too, which I think are important. But think the right things in the right way. Right?
So I was thinking that we can probably add thinking. Wow, Ian.
That was good.
To
That was
everyone who's
deep.
listening, if you do not know Ian, he has a great sense of humor.
Can you say that?
I mean,
All right,
he does. He has all these cool
Yeah.
dad jokes.
Do you have
Oh,
a book
so
of
many.
dad jokes? Is there like a
Oh, could you write a book
I
for
might
us?
or might not have more than one book of dad jokes in my house. But anyway,
I knew it.
We're gonna have to bring his wife on.
yeah, my jokes are bad enough that when I left my first job as a PT, one of the nurses that we worked really well with got me a book of dad joke, like 101 dad jokes, as like my seal, as my like parting gift. I was like, that's awesome.
She's like, this is Ian.
That's right. Now that he's leaving, let's give him some more ammunition.
Oh gosh, no. Then he brings it to us. So a part of this implementation, I think that we'll probably jump into in the next episode is how we bring all of this stuff into the gym too, and how coaches can use it, how our athletes can use it. But I think before we go, one thing that could be really helpful is that maybe we talk about one daily habit, whether it's coaches or athletes, that they can use to kind of help improve that self-image that we're working on, or trying to shape that subconscious that we're wanting, like those views of themselves and how they perform, because obviously everyone realizes sports isn't just about sports, it's about creating healthy, happy individuals going into adulthood. So what is one daily habit that you guys would recommend to help transition to a better dynamic self-image?
I have outlawed the use of the phrase "that was bad" or "that was terrible" or "that was blank." At worst, they get to say something like that was low and I need to do this to make it higher. Right? They have to give themselves a correction or ask me for the correction for the problem that they observed. But they are no longer, because I am sick and tired of hearing, "Oh, that was bad," or "Oh, that was terrible." I'm like, there's zero net benefit. There's only harm that you're doing to yourself and to your skills by saying that phrase out loud or in your head. Give me something better.
I agree. I do something slightly different, but similar. I used to do that. And what I've learned is you're never going to stop them from the negative thought. It's there. It's coming. They might not say it out loud, but it flashes through the brain, right?
Yep.
So I have started steering it towards, we call it get pissed and get past, right? That turn sucked. Yep. Cool. Why? Well, I did this. Okay. What do you need to do? Well, I need to do that. Well, you got your cue for your next turn. Yep. Good. That's it. It's really that simple.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
It's that simple because my girls have done 2 years of mental mastery, but it can be that simple. I think mine would be the same. Mine would be that for the gymnasts, similar to Ian's with a slight tweak. But mine for myself personally is I am a firm believer that you are or you become what you think you are. And I mean, to an extent, if I think I'm a dinosaur, I'm not going to be a dinosaur. But I mean, if I think I'm gonna achieve something, then I'm probably likely to set out to achieve it. If I keep believing that, then eventually I'm gonna achieve it, right? So I have to remind myself a lot to keep things in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, that's good.
And I guess what I would say, this could go for coaches or for athletes, but when you're looking at something, I want you to start thinking about the awareness. What do you jump to first when you're noticing something? So if you're a coach and you're watching an athlete do a skill, are you jumping to all of the things that they did wrong right away when you're thinking about it? Or are you noticing what they're doing well too? And how are you giving those corrections? Are you sharing things that they did well first, or just jumping to all the corrections? And same goes for athletes. This could be in and out of the gym, but when you assess yourself after you've done something, are you instantly jumping to everything that you did wrong? Or can you find something that you did well, something that felt well? So just trying to reframe, there's a pause before we do things, and try to use that pause to be like, oh, wait, which direction am I going to go with this? What can I find that went well?
Rebecca, you are a master of segueing us into future podcasts, because let me tell you, that one right there is massive, and we see it constantly. All three of us probably like or comment on the same posts in the Facebook groups, right? I used to coach this and kids used to that, and now they don't this, and what's wrong with the kids? And let's look in the mirror first.
Yeah.
If you're just noticing everything they're doing wrong and everything is wrong and fix, why? Because I say so, fear, it's not going to work. It only works to an extent until they aren't scared of you and then they hate you. So I think we could do a lot of good on that discussion on another day, or even on, how we could be handling these situations in a more productive way. There's not anything wrong with the kids. To be honest with you, I won't mention the generations, but there's some recent generations that I'm just like, not my favorite, right?
My favorite.
But I mean, and it's
We'll see
okay,
how they
right? Not
count.
their fault.
Yeah.
They're a product of, their
Of the
social
previous
learning,
generation.
right? But these Gen Z kids and these Gen Alpha kids, they're sharp,
Yeah.
right? They get it. They get it more than you think they get it. And they also see through those manipulations. So I think that we just have to be better at leading them. And if we can do that, and we can do that united with them, then our relationship with them improves, their trust with us improves, the whole thing improves. Even for the coaches to come in every day instead of like, ugh, here we go again. It could be excited to
lead instead of fight.
I know. And the only thing that I'll say based off of this quick, and then we will transition out, people. But coaches, we've been taught over time that we want quick results. In gymnastics, that's kind of how it used to be. You would get these short-term results. They may not turn into long-term results, but they happen right away. And that's validation that we're doing the right thing. And if we change our methods to some of the things that we're asking people to do, that's long-term. You don't see the results right away. So we have to put more commitment to it, and we have to make more changes. And that's hard for us to do just as people in general. So
yeah, I've said for a long time, if all you see is a problem around you, it's probably you. Right? If every kid in your gym is a problem, oh man, that's probably you. Like I've seen posts on Facebook where people go, oh, just every gym around me is terrible. Maybe that's it. Maybe you live in some crazy chasm of absolutely terrible gymnastics coaching, possibly. Or it's probably you're the problem. So if all you see around you is a problem, it's probably you.
That's true. There's a saying, if you run into a jerk in the morning, you ran into a jerk. If you ran into jerks all day, you're the jerk.
You're the jerk, right? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think I'm a relatively positive person. I think most people that meet me would say I'm positive, but it didn't come naturally to me all the time. And it took me a long time to reframe my perspective and to look at the right things in order to become the positive person that I am today. I was sitting in the gym this week and I asked, oh, hey, so-and-so, how are you today? And they're like, oh, I'm good, and they asked me how I was. I was like, oh, I'm doing fantastic today. And one of my little gymnasts was sitting right next to me and she goes, I thought you said you were sore today. I was like, yeah, I'm sore, but that doesn't mean I'm not fantastic. And just, reframing some things in your mind where you go, yeah, I mean, today could be a bad day, but that doesn't mean that I'm not doing well or that something good isn't happening.
Well, and it took you that long to get that right, even with a fully adult logic center formed. So imagine what they're going through with puberty and hormones and, they don't even understand consequences into their 20s. I mean, getting them to do it, we have to be patient, right?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It is the long game, like Becca was saying.
Yes. Long game can be frustrating. So for everyone who's listening, we really want you to be a part of this series. We want to know, what are the things that you would like to see covered in this mental mastery program? And then what mental skills do you feel like are working with your gymnast right now in your gym? Or what are mental skills that you're struggling with and you would like to implement? We want to be able to help you with these things. Your questions shape these episodes, and we love hearing from you. So if you did enjoy this episode, remember to subscribe, like, comment, or share with anyone who could benefit from this conversation. And until next time, stay happy, healthy, and high performing.